Hi, welcome back to Strong as You Think. Today, I want to talk about our feelings and how everything we do and don't do is because we're either chasing after or running from a feeling. Now, that sounds kind of weird. It really did to me the first time I heard it. But as I started to think about my life, I realized it really is true. And I remember my husband used to kind of he would tease me about how every 5 years or so, or maybe it was less than that, that I would want to move. And we both grew up like in the same house for almost all our lives, maybe one or two homes. And so thinking, why do I want to move? And I could always think of reasons. Oh, I want more room. Oh, my kids need more space in the yard. Wouldn't it be so nice? Wouldn't our kids want to have friends over more if, we had more space, if we had bigger this, we weren't so smushed together, or we had a nicer backyard, or all these different reasons that I could think of why we should move, to a different house. And sometimes we would get some of those things that we wanted, even if when we moved, I thought, oh, now the kids will want to have friends over. Now we'll want to do this. And the thing is that it would last for a while, the excitement of having a new house. And then even with more space and nicer things, it would still come up that I want to move again, or I want more of this. And so why is that? Why we say we grow out of things, but I think it's because I was looking for a feeling. And for a while, when I wanted to feel better, I wanted to feel more, really more worthy, like more enough. Like if I had these things that I could give to others, then I'm somehow better. I'm somehow able to provide better. I'm look better. Other people think that I'm enough, and then they're going to treat me differently. And so I'm looking for reasons to feel better and and a lot of times the feeling better is to feel worthy. And it works for a while. We have this and we do get attention. We get a new house. Everyone asks, they want to come see the new house. We can have a housewarming party. There's the excitement of getting the house all set up. We get to buy new things to get that, and it feels in some ways like it's a new life. And it can last, but it doesn't last. It never lasts forever. I mean, it can even last probably for a year or two. But then after all that kind of fades, then we're left back with what we were before we got the new house. That's what I was left back with that. And then it would come back, and then I would think, oh, I want to move. This isn't enough. And it never is enough because I was trying to make myself feel enough with things that can never make me feel enough. And I didn't know this for a long time. I mean, I think that we've heard the phrase, you can never get enough of what you don't need. And sometimes I think it's just you can't fill a hole with something that's not that, like you can't feel enough, get a feeling of enough by giving things, because things aren't what make us feel that way. It can make us, it's a substitute for a while, It can give us a dopamine high as we're doing all those things. It can keep us busy and distracted from it. But ultimately, when we're back down with our feelings, when I got to back down with my feelings, that I figured out it was because I didn't feel like I was enough on my own. And so I had to be constantly looking for things that would validate me and make me feel like I was good enough. And you have to keep chasing that, you know, and there would never be a house big enough to validate my feelings forever. And so when I have learned that and about myself, then it's been really interesting to see the change. Like, even it was really interesting. In this house we have now, I've always thought it would be fun to have a pool, or the idea of it sounded fun. And then I've had some other friends who've had pools and said, well, we're not even using them that much. And so I kind of thought, well, maybe I don't need a pool. I don't want one that bad where we are now. But it was interesting. I was reading something on social media about someone who was building their pool. And I thought, oh yeah, I never got a pool. I've always wanted one. Those thoughts were coming in, and I was able to kind of just stop myself and say, yeah, but you thought about this and decided that you don't even really want one right now. So why are you thinking that you want a pool now when you see this other person have that? And it's because that I still have those feelings that come up of how I'm not enough or how I'm comparing to somebody else. And I, have to be careful about those temporary feelings of feeling enough only if I'm as good as or better than somebody else, because that just doesn't last. There's always somebody else that's going to be better than me. So if I'm doing that, then it will never last. And so then we think, well, how do I then start to have those feelings inside me? Because that's the only place I'm going to always be with me, right? When I don't like those feelings with me, that's when I have to distract myself by, like, maybe doing something else that's going to give me a dopamine hit. That's when I need to have buy something, buy a house, buy a pool, just go to the store and buy something. That's when I have to start eating ice cream or sweets. I get that hit, that sugar high, that dopamine that kind of distracts me from all that. And when I realized that and could kind of counter that before the feeling got there, what I did was, when recently, when I saw the post about someone with a pool and saw where my mind was going and started feeling that way, I was like, oh, that feeling kind of gave me that indication, like, I don't like this, and why I'm doing that, because I'm thinking this, and does this thinking make sense? And I was like, actually, it doesn't really make sense. And I was able to quickly say, yeah, it makes sense that I'm feeling this way. I acknowledged the truthfulness of that feeling because it was there. I couldn't just say I'm not feeling that way, or I shouldn't be feeling that way. And that just shoves the feeling down. It doesn't take care of it, right? So, but I was able to kind of just question that and say, oh yeah, here I am thinking that I've thought so long. It makes sense. Not fun, but it doesn't make sense to me anymore. This is not how I want to think anymore. And I actually really don't want a pool right now. And so I don't have to think that. And it was really powerful for me to think, like, to really understand that process and to be able to catch it there, so that I didn't have to move through and have this whole experience of, oh, why can't I have a pool? Everyone else gets one, or that, why are they so much more special than me that they have that? When that didn't even make sense. Like, I had decided I didn't really want one, but that's what my brain was offering me out of so many years of habit. And because that's what it used to do to make me feel better, to chase a feeling. It was like, well, they look happy, so I must need to do what they're doing, right? And I realized, I'm chasing a feeling that I can find in myself another way. I can feel good about having confidence in my own decisions, and that I made a decision different from somebody, but I like that decision. And then it feels really good to know that I am running on feelings that I've decided to have, instead of just what's just comes from habit, what comes from beliefs that I don't even know are going on. Because a lot of times we're not thinking, oh, I want to have this because I feel bad about myself. It's not really usually a conscious thought. I mean, if it wasn't for me, I had to kind of, when I started to feel that maybe envy and that uncomfortable feeling, that's when I was able to stop myself and say, where is this coming from? Is this what I want? Right. And so sometimes it's good to have that uncomfortable feeling, because it stops us. It can cause us to stop and look and stop that cycle from going on, those thought loops from going on that we don't even realize that we're having. But I was able to stop and say, this is what I'm thinking, and I'm not sure I even agree with that. I'm not sure that it makes sense. And that's causing me to feel this way. And so I think a lot of times we just don't realize that we're trying to avoid, or we're trying to chase after feelings, and that the root of a lot of them is the feeling of not enough. And as we can pay attention to that and know where our motivations come from, they come from the feelings fuel us, and the feelings come from beliefs that we have. And sometimes those are beliefs that even came to us from when we were young, and we weren't completely understanding of why we believed that. And sometimes it's helpful to go back and find out where those beliefs came from, so we can kind of pick through them and decide, does that make sense for me to still believe that? And sometimes we just realize it doesn't make sense for me anymore. I'm sure I had a good reason, but it doesn't make sense for me anymore. And sometimes we don't have to dig through it, but so it just is individual circumstances to find out what works for you, how much you need to know about the past beliefs to keep going forward. I think it can be helpful, but I don't think it's necessary. So I would just offer to you, to when you want to do these things, or when you find yourself doing something you don't want to do, when you find yourself unhappy with something you have or you don't have, or to kind of take a look about what's going on in here. What are the feelings? And that's just an excellent place to start from. And do they make sense? And find out, why you don't want this feeling, or why you're anxiously chasing a feeling, because that will lead you to what you really believe. And You don't need to judge that, because there's a reason that we believe what we believe. Even if it doesn't make sense here, there's a reason that did make sense. And so to honor that about yourself, that yes, even when I believe things that I don't want to believe, that don't make sense, that give yourself the benefit of the doubt. There's a reason. And that's how you're going to move forward. So take a look at those feelings. Take a look at those, how they fuel you. And if that's really what you want to be doing. All right. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.